Hey peeps, and welcome to a jobless tutorial. So, I'm recording this today as part of a Bachelor of Computing paper, which pretty much you have to make an online course. The online course I'm making is on making a multiplayer map for Halo Custom Edition. To do this, we're going to need numerous different pieces of software, but the first one, the one I'm going to be covering today, is Gmax. More specifically, the basics of using Gmax. I'll actually be covering how to make the map in Gmax in the next video I do, hopefully tomorrow, because I've only got 6 weeks to finish this thing. So, yeah, Gmax. So Gmax is a clone of 3ds Max. You can use 3ds Max or Gmax to make maps for Halo Custom Edition, although you'll need an older version of 3ds Max. But seeing as Gmax is free and 3ds Max is not, and along with the fact I don't know, I just like Gmax more. I think it's a lot simpler to use because it's a bit older, it's got a few less features. Yeah, it has its limitations. You can't do animations in Gmax, which you need 3ds Max to do if you want to make animations for Halo Custom Edition. I mean, you can do animations in Gmax, but you cannot do them for Halo Custom Edition. That's the important part here. Yeah, so Gmax is a clone of 3ds Max. I think it's 2004. I can't remember what version of 3ds Max that is, but it's very similar. In fact, it's pretty much exactly the same, except a particular version. Aside from a few little features, like it doesn't have as many import options or export options. It does allow you to export for, you're using a few scripts to export for Halo Custom Edition, which is what we're worried about. If you want to export to, say, 3ds Max, it is possible, but it's a long-winded process. I would not recommend just use 3ds Max if you want to use 3ds Max. It's that simple. Yeah, because it's not an easy process whatsoever. Anyway, so 3ds Max. I've stuck the link to 3ds Max, so Gmax, in the tutorial description. So that's there. You'll need to register an account with TurboSquid, which is also free. All this is free, just so you know. And that'll give you a free a product key for Gmax, so you can actually run it. Bear in mind, this is my first ever tutorial I've made, so I'm probably not doing the best here, but bear with me. So, yeah, download Gmax, install Gmax, and once that's done, we'll open it up. So pause your video now if you do not have it. Give you a couple of seconds. Intermission. Intermission over. Alright. So I'm going to go ahead and open Gmax. This is just use. I always ignore it. Maybe if you want to look up what's new with Gmax. One thing I guess that is important to note right now is this is Gmax 1.2. I will only be using Gmax 1.2. Do not use the older versions. If there is a newer version, I'm not sure if it's supported by Halo Custom Edition scripts. So if you can, stick with Gmax 1.2. Okay, so we're in our user interface now. We've got our 4 screens here, our perspective, which shows the 3D view, the top view, which shows a bird's eye view of the object, the front and left, which obviously show the front and left of the object. Pretty simple stuff. We've got our bar up here, so you got your undo buttons, your link, we'll cover that later, select object. So whenever you do something in Gmax, after you've done it, it's best to go back to select object so you don't screw something up on accident by still having whatever the features you had open. I've never used this before. This one here, select by name, we'll be covering that later as well. Select and move, I'll be covering that in this tutorial. Select and rotate, I don't really use that, but it's pretty simple. You select the object you want and click and drag pretty much, and it'll rotate the object for you. Resize, so that's something we'll also be covering later. Pretty much, the object you make will probably not be the same right scale for Halo Custom Edition, and we'll be using an import script to import the Master Chief model from Halo into Gmax so that we can scale it properly, and that's when we'll be using this function here. I've never used these ones either. Never really used those either, to be perfectly honest. It's not something you really need for this. So I won't really be covering any of these things, but these two are the texture editors. Not going to be covering them in this tutorial, but we'll be covering them as this goes along quite a lot because texturing is an important part of making an object. And then we've got these ones here. I'll cover those in just a moment. This is for animating. We do not use that in this one because it does not work for Halo Custom Edition. These are also not really used much right now. So really what we're going to worry about is these few here, this panel, these two, and these ones here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make a box to begin with. Pretty much anything you make for Halo Custom Edition will start off as a box. Obviously, there's some reasons you may want to use a spear or a cylinder or something similar like that, but a box is pretty useful for most of it. Just so you know, the teapot does not work. I've never managed to get that into Halo Custom Edition. I have tried. So yeah, box. So you got your cube, which will just make a standard cube. You just click and drag. All the dimensions are the same. You don't need to set them. Or you go box. So I'm going to make a box. As you can see, I've got on the top view the width and length of my box. So I want to get it roughly cubish, really. And then we size up and down, dragging up and down. So you drag left and right to get it to the first size. So to scale of height and width, and then length and width, then height you just pull up and down. So I'm going to get it to around that cube shape. There we are. Now you can see my object here is purple. Yours will probably be grey because it starts off as grey by default. I've used this for a few years. There might be a few things in this interface that are a little bit different from what you're seeing at the moment. But for the majority it's going to be the same. So if you do want to change your box colour, I choose purple because it stands out a bit more rather than grey against a grey background. You just go into here and you can select the colour, or even add a custom colour if you want. Don't know why you'd bother really, but it's up to you. Anyway, so got my purple. Yeah, so we've got our box here. So the first thing you really want to do after you've made your box is you want to go into perspective and select edged faces. I'll explain why you want to select that in a moment when we get round to it. But it is important. Make sure you do that to begin with. It helps a lot later on. And then I guess we'll cover these tools here. So you got your field of view first. That can be used to zoom in and out. I don't use it much because it can warp the perspective of how you see the object, which can be very frustrating later on. Generally, if I want to zoom in out, I'll use my mouse scroll, or I'll use the zoom button, which is a lot better than mouse scroll because it allows you to minutely get it to exactly the zoom you want rather than trying to be sort of get it where you want by scrolling, which is not always as exact as you want it to be. You got your zoom extents and zoom extents all. That will just recenter it on the object you've selected pretty much. I can't remember which one does which exactly, but you'll work it out if you need to use it. We don't really need it right now, but it is useful if you're doing a single player map and you might have multiple BSPs, which a BSP is the name Halo gives the map module itself. So in a single player map, you may notice if you've played Halo Custom Edition or Halo 1 that you walk along, but it may say loading, please wait for a moment. That's switching between the two 3D models. Chances are it'll be part of the 3D model that's not so much colliding, but it's in the same place in the 3D model in Gmax or whatever. So that it seems like you're not jumping from one part of the model to another. You might have like one BSP here, another one there, and just jumping between. That doesn't work. But if you've got them right next to each other, it just seems like you're walking between the two. But yeah, we don't really worry about multiple BSPs in multiplayer because it can cause enormous problems. I'm not even going to go into that. So we're just using one of these. In multiple BSPs, so you may need to use these to switch your view between the two so you're focused on the one you want to be editing. Anyway, so we got our arc rotate, which can be used to rotate all around the object. If you want to specifically rotate to one side, you might, for example, move your mouse out here, or move your mouse up here, down here, that sort of stuff. So it's pretty simple. Pan, moving around the scene. This is called a scene. Any 3D model in Gmax is known as a scene. The whole thing anyway. So you might have multiple objects in a particular file. The file itself is known as the scene. Then there's this one here, which switches between entirely perspective and this view. Very useful if you want to do some fiddly little small details, and you want to zoom up as much as you can. You might want a larger perspective view. So anyway, yeah, that's about the basics for moving it around. I'll start getting, I guess, into manipulating it. So the first one is a select and move, so we can just pretty much click maybe one X, Y, Z. It will highlight the one you're selecting. So I'm going to go Y here. Oh, yeah, this is perspective. So in perspective, you're not going to be able to get it probably quite how you want it to. Generally, if you're doing this, you want to use the top, left, or front views to move it. So you actually get it to move the direction you want rather than the direction you think you want, but then you change the perspective, because the perspective can be very deceptive at times. It may look like it's where you want it to look, but you look at the top view and say, oh wow, no, it's sort of in the right area on the x-axis, but on the y-axis it's way off because you didn't really notice when you were moving in perspective that you were moving in 3 directions at once or 2 directions at once or whatever. Yeah. When you're doing that, it's best to stick to these 3 views to move that. Same with rotate. That's just you select it and you can rotate it on the y-axis or rotate it on the x-axis or the z-axis, whatever. No, undo is very useful on this. Very useful. So I've got my object. Now the first thing I really want to do when I want to actually be manipulating the object itself rather than just moving around, so I want to right click on it. I want to go convert to an editable mesh. An editable poly and patch as well. These are definitely used in certain objects. But I want mesh, which means I'm working with triangles pretty much. So I've converted to mesh and it's only got the screen up here, which gives me all different manipulation options. So vertex is first. That's just the points in the object. So for example, I selected this point here, and I might want to change. Yeah, I can use the select to move in perspective here. I don't have to really worry too much about this one unless I'm doing fine details. So I can change how I want the box to look. Maybe I want to look like this for some reason, or not. You can also do this with the face, but not really ideal. It tends to. That one there is okay, but it can be problematic. I'll show you later what I mean by that. We got our edges, so just a single edge of the face, so we can move it like this, for example. You'll notice I've got these options here, so we can chamfer this, make a nice ramp or something. You've got the face view. Don't really use this very often, so I'm not really going to cover it because it's more of a debugging, something you'd use for debugging more than anything else. Then we've got our polygon, which allows me to select a single face of the view. I'll explain why that's so useful in a moment. And then element, which selects the whole thing. So yeah, polygon view. Polygon view is probably the one you'll be using the most out of all these, which is select a face and then manipulate that. So polygon view's got a number of different abilities. So the first one will be tessellate. So I notice that tessellate's got 25 here. That's the amount of tessellation that occurs. I'll show you what that means right now. So I'll go tessellate now, and as you can see, it's looking a bit knobbly here. So that's really good for cliff walls, things that you want to look knobbly. But if you want to just get triangles, make more triangles in this particular face, you go 0 in tessellate. You do 10 will do knobbly a little bit less. Now it's where you're gonna. I'll just go back and untessellate it first. So yeah, you get different amounts of knobbliness, as it were. So yeah, I want to just get four. So one more tessellation here with that's still black. I'll probably select this space here. Now I can do some interesting things here. I could make it bigger, like that. As you can see, I've just dramatically changed how this object looks. Or I could push it inwards, which, as you can see this. Well, this is okay. This is an excellent way of causing some problems when compiling with issues with your 3D model. We'll be covering those in compiling, which is a little way from here for now. Just be a bit careful that what you're doing doesn't. I'll explain in compiling. It's not necessary right now. Okay, so that's the basics of moving the shape around. Then we've got bevel and extrude are the other two you really use a lot. So we've got bevel, extrude first, which allows you to do something like this. I can pull the shape outwards a bit. Now I might want to select a different one. This one here, for example, I can push it in. Now this is actually going to cause errors. Here you've got two faces right next to each other like that. That will cause a compile error. It does not like that, so do not do that. It's fine if you've got, for example, I'll just tessellate this again. It's fine if you've got something like this. As you can see, the edges are not right next to each other. But if you were to do it like this, it's going to have two faces right against each other, which can cause compile errors. Right, then we've got bevel. So bevel's the next one that does this. Bevels objects pretty much, which allows you to do things like this, or maybe something like this. So to pull it outwards, we pull up. To push it inwards, we pull down. This will cause a huge error. Do not pull it too far. So you don't want the lines going over top of each other when you go bevel something. And you can also do this via integers. So if I want to extrude something via integers, maybe I want a specific amount of extrusion. I might go 50 here, for example. and then I might want to bevel it. Now, so you have to extrude before you can bevel this way. So I've extruded it now, and I want to bevel it in outwards by 1. As you can see, it's done very slightly. I might want to bevel it outwards by 10. See? So that's more of the exact way. Or if I want to bevel it inwards, I've got -4, for example. As you can see, it's now beveled this shape inwards. So I've got a bit of an interesting looking shape here. So that's about the basics of Gmax. Just for manipulating shapes. That's about all we'll be covering in the tutorial. Except for I guess there's one more very important thing, which is especially for BSPs, which is flip. So as you can see, what I've done here, well, you probably can't see very well right now, but I've flipped the object inside out, which is very important for making BSPs, because in Halo, the BSPs have to be completely enclosed. There can't be any gaps. So, for example, I can't have something like this happen, where I've got a big hole in it. It's not going to compile. It'll have errors. It'll say open face error. Is the error it'll give you, because it's trying to light map, and the lights just I don't fully understand myself, but the light bounces off everything like light does in real life. Now that there's a big hole, then all the light will be bouncing out the hole, and it will not light map. So make sure your object's completely enclosed when doing, or anything actually in Halo really, anything except making scenery objects, you need to have the object fully enclosed. So that's about it for this tutorial. Next week I'll be covering actually making the basic map. But for now, I'll leave you guys. Keep playing around with Gmax, and I'll see you, if not tomorrow, then sometime later this week. Later is all.